The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to John. Jesus said to his disciples, "I am the true vine, and my Father is the vine grower. He takes away every branch in me that does not bear fruit, and every one that does he prunes so that it bears more fruit. You are already pruned because of the word that I spoke to you. Remain in me as I remain in you. Just as a branch cannot bear fruit on its own unless it remains on the vine, so neither can you unless you remain in me. I am the vine, you are the branches. Whoever remains in me and I in him will bear much fruit, because without me you can do nothing. Anyone who does not remain in me will be thrown out like a branch and wither. People will gather them and throw them into a fire, and they will be burned. If you remain in me, my words remain in you. Ask for whatever you want, and it will be done for you. By this is my Father glorified, that you bear much fruit and become my disciples." The Gospel of the Lord. Does this gospel reading sound familiar? I had this on Sunday, in fact. And I like when this happens, when we get a gospel reading during the week that we just recently had on Sunday, because it just shows how important this message is. And it gives me another shot at preaching at it, in case maybe I had some extra thoughts that I wanted to add in. But it's interesting that we have this gospel reading with our first reading. Because in our first reading, they're arguing a lot about what they call the law of Moses. So just to kind of fill you in, the law of Moses was all the things that the Jewish people had to do in order to make themselves worthy to have a relationship with God. There were a lot of different things that they had to do. They had to wash their hands a lot. They had to do these rituals. They had to offer sacrifices, because they recognized that the distance between them and God was kind of far, and so they had to do these things so that they could be closer to Him. Now, when we read our gospel reading, we see something different. We see that Jesus is saying, "I am already close to you. In fact, I'm so close to you that you belong to me." He uses the image of the vine and the branches, and I think all of you get what he's talking about, right? You have the vine, the long vine, and off of that vine, all of these little branches come off. Well, that's what Jesus is saying about us. Jesus came into the world so that he could be close to us, so that we could belong to him. So holiness, which is ultimately the life that we're called to live, which is a life in relationship with Jesus, holiness isn't a matter of what we have to do. All of these things, like the Mosaic Law, all of these rituals, all of these practices that we have to do in order to get ourselves right so that we can have a relationship with God. But instead, holiness is recognizing that Jesus is here, that Jesus already wants a relationship with us, and in fact, that we belong to him, that we're his, that he loves us so much that he draws us close to himself. And all we have to do is stay with him. All we have to do is stay with Jesus. How often, when you have friends or family members that you love, do you just want to be with them? When some family members come over, you don't want them to leave, you want them to stay. Or when you're hanging out with your friends at school, you want to stay there, and mom and dad come to pick you up and you say, "No, I'm playing with my friends." That's what Jesus wants with each and every one of us. He wants to be with us because he loves us. And he wants us to be with him. That's why he came into the world, so that we can grow in our relationship with him, and then our lives can change. then all of the things that we have to do, because inevitably we have to work and we have to grow, but all of those things that we have to do become a consequence of that relationship, are the result of that relationship. And so they come easy. But it's not a burden that we have to carry, that we have to go to Mass on Sunday and that we have to pray our prayers. But instead, it's a reflection of a relationship that we already have with someone who loves us. And so it's easy to do those things. It's not a burden. It's not difficult. It's a reflection of a relationship. It's a reflection of the love that Jesus has for us and that we have for him. Perhaps you've been to the beach and have seen a current or have got caught in a current, where all of a sudden you're swimming along and the next thing you know, the water just kind of pulls you in a certain direction. That's the way it is with Jesus. When we enter into a relationship with him, when we recognize that we belong to him, it's kind of like getting pulled into a current. And it moves us in a certain direction. It moves us towards peace and towards happiness and towards fulfillment, towards holiness. Not because of something that we've done, because we've simply allowed ourselves to belong to him. Because we've allowed Jesus to enter into our lives and we've recognized how important he is for our lives, and because we want to stay with him. We want to remain, as we hear in the gospel. So this is good news. Jesus is giving us some good news today, because I don't think any of us need any more things to do. We live in a world with a lot of things to do. Jesus is telling us today, just be with me. Just be with me and everything will fall into place. The work that you have to do, the obligations that you have, they'll fall in place. Because when we're connected to Jesus in the way that he describes in our gospel, and it's his energy, his power, it's his strength that passes through us. It's his life that he gives us. So we don't have to worry. We have nothing to worry about. This is truly good news that Jesus Christ has come into the world so that we could have life. So that we could have life in him. Not as some kind of obligation, not a life that's filled with checklists and all these things that we have to do, and we have to worry about getting ourselves right in order to have this relationship. But he comes to us and he loves us. He invites us to share life with him. No matter where we may be, in church, in school, at Fun in the Sun, Jesus is there. And he wants a relationship with us there, just as much as he wants a relationship with us here in church. And so today we can turn to Jesus. We can turn to him and we can pray in our hearts and we can say, Jesus, I love you. Jesus, help me. Help me to remain with you. Help me to be with you. Help me to grow in my relationship with you. Because I love you, and I know that you love me.